Hey everyone, I'm Vic. I'm the host of Comic Books Beyond podcast. Our show is about helping new readers find new comic books. Currently, in our show, we're reviewing all the Marvel Premiere and DC Compact editions, with a couple exceptions. And today, we're going to be looking at Captain America: The Winter Soldier. We're going to keep this as spoiler free as possible. Let's get into today's episode. I always recommend buying locally if possible, but don't forget your local library, especially if they participate in the Hoopla app where you can read this for free. I also really like the Marvel Unlimited and DC Infinite apps. They just happen to be great value. This book was written by Ed Brubaker with art by Steve Epting, Mike Lark, Mike Perkins, John Paul Leon, with inks by Tom Palmer, colors by Frank Diarmata, and lettering by VC's Randy Gentile, Chris Eliopoulos, and Joe Caramagna. I'm not going to bury the lead here. I really enjoyed this story. This is a spy thriller that also focuses on Captain America's history, as well as a bit of a meta commentary on the history of the writing of the Marvel Universe and the treatment of some characters. I really recommend reading Ed Brubaker's foreword at the beginning of this book. It's very enlightening. I really like the overall tone and vibe of this story. I'm not a big spy thriller guy, but Ed Brubaker has cracked the code on how to write these stories, even for someone like me who traditionally doesn't click with these. There's a lot of twists and turns where you constantly find yourself questioning what is really going on in this globe-trotting adventure with lots of flashbacks and subplots. Now, this tells the story of Steve Rogers, Captain America, questioning his past and his relationship with the final days of his former sidekick, Bucky, who died in World War II. At the same time, in the present day, a new adversary appears who looks strikingly like Bucky, just with better hair, a cooler arm, and a penchant for killing. He also speaks Russian now. I love the supporting characters in this, primarily Nick Fury and Sharon Carter, Agent 13. I love the confidence and competence of Sharon Carter, and for my money, Ed Brubaker's writing is most well suited for Nick Fury. While I love his take on Cap, I find him a little angrier and more brash than usual, but he never really strays too far to become completely unrecognizable. He becomes more threatening than violent. The art in this series is almost exactly what I want from any comic book. Steve Epting and Mike Lark are a perfect match for Ed Brubaker, which is probably why they've collaborated several times together. I would say that I find their superhero art nearly perfect for their story, but some of the non costume characters can feel a little similar at times. It might just be the ink getting in the way of this. Now, there's a solid standalone issue featuring the history of the character Jack Monroe, also known as the hero Nomad. While not the absolute best issue of the series, it's a very strong standalone story that had been set up a few issues prior, so I give it credit for that. Towards the end of the series, we start to get a few issues that felt a little info dumpy to my taste. I did like the presentation here, which was done in the style of a dossier along with some journal entries. The art in the background was really good, and it's honestly some of my favorite in the series. I did two passes over this section, one where I read everything and one where I just focused on the art. I tend to find myself doing this in a lot of comics. It's just kind of my natural reading habit. I think the conclusion of this story is fairly satisfying, but it really feels like the first part of a story rather than a natural conclusion, as the last pages very clearly set up the future. Now, Ed Brubaker did go on to write about another 77 issues of this or so, including one issue within this run that was not collected. This collects issues 1 through 14 with the exception of issue 10. This was part of the House of M storyline, which was a company-wide crossover. I personally wish they just included it with a disclaimer or moved it to the end of the book, but I understand that they might not have done that because of general confusion. Now, this is just my personal preference, as I just appreciate the author's voice style and tone rather than the overall plot most of the times. However, I understand the inclusion of this would have probably just interrupted the flow of the story too much, in the same way that all crossovers do to some degree. Sorry, I'll stop projecting. So what's my final verdict? I don't personally like numerical ratings. If you're looking for a numerical rating, we're not the channel for you. I find them reductive and they just don't really tell me anything. What's a 3 compared to a 3? Based on everything I've read and I've talked about today, I'm going to rate Captain America the Winter Soldier as very new reader friendly, and it has great quality as well. I think anyone can pick this up and be mostly fine. There's going to be some lines you won't have all the context for, but you truly don't need it, and it's just little bits of world building. Their presence doesn't detract from the main story, and honestly, it made me want to read backwards for further context. This also made me want to finish the rest of the run, and I'm probably going to do that. Now, if you'd be interested in a more relaxed and rambly version of this review, check out my podcast, Comic Books Beyond. It's in a playlist available on this channel. It's also on Spotify or iTunes. That's all for now. Read comics, check in on your people, and be good to each other. See you guys.